This happened back in 2019 when I was living in Portland, Oregon. I've always been a homebody. So, when my coworker Rachel, who was about 8 years younger than me, started relentlessly begging me to go out, I kept declining. She and another girl from work, Sophie, were persistent, though. And after weeks of asking, I finally gave in. I told Rachel I would join them for a night out the following weekend. Story 1, the girls' night out. As the weekend approached, Rachel came to my apartment. She wanted to leave her car there and have me drive, which immediately stressed me out. I had lived in Portland for 3 years, but since I rarely left my neighborhood, I knew nothing about local nightlife. The farthest I usually drove was 5 miles to the nearest Target. If I went any further, I'd be lost without my GPS. That evening, we got into my car and headed towards Sophie's apartment. When we arrived, Sophie wasn't quite ready, so we went inside and waited. Once she was ready, all three of us piled back into my car. Since I was driving, Rachel had to navigate. We eventually ended up at a busy club downtown. We went inside, found a spot near the bar, and ordered some drinks. We hadn't been there long when Rachel said, "Hey, I'll be right back. I see someone I know." She then asked Sophie to go with her. I remember feeling a sharp stab of annoyance. Why beg me to come out only to leave me alone moments later? But I waited. A few minutes later, Rachel and Sophie returned smiling. "My friend bought us a round," Rachel announced, handing me a glass. I trusted her. She was my coworker, so I took the drink as they did theirs. I believe Rachel's friend bought us 2 rounds each. It wasn't long after the third drink that something felt terribly wrong. The room didn't spin, but a wave of thick, unsettling dread washed over me. I turned to Rachel and insisted, "We have to go now. The next few hours are a blur." I don't remember leaving the club, but apparently we did. The first thing I recall clearly is sitting outside Sophie's apartment complex, still in the driver's seat of my car. I heard Rachel and Sophie talking, and whatever they said, some combination of words I can't recall to this day, instantly triggered my fight or flight response. I didn't need to understand the words. My gut knew I was in danger. I slammed the car into drive and sped away. Whatever had been slipped into my drink was powerful. I wasn't a lightweight and I'd only consumed 3 club drinks, which are often watered down. I was driving all over Portland, unable to focus, simply trying to figure out how to get home. But my mind was completely scrambled. At one point I stopped at a red light. Suddenly, 2 figures appeared at my window and then someone was pulling my car door open. I was in total shock. My car doors automatically locked the second I put the vehicle in gear. I still have no idea how they managed to open it. 2 strange men were actively pulling the door open, and the sight snapped me out of the mental fog just enough for me to hit the gas and flee the intersection. After that moment of sheer terror, the memory vanishes again. The next thing I remember, I was sitting in my car parked near a row of quiet homes. I was staring blankly at my phone, trying desperately to figure out how to operate it. But the drug had made me so paranoid and confused that the simplest action felt impossible. I looked around, saw no one, and convinced myself I was safe for the moment. I reclined the seat and fell into a deep drug-induced sleep. I woke up around 5 a.m. with the drug wearing off. I was finally able to use my phone. I put on the GPS and drove straight home, collapsing into bed immediately. I woke up again around 11 a.m. to 17 missed calls, mostly from Rachel, but a few from a concerned friend. When I called Rachel back, she was frantic, demanding to know where I went. "What do you mean?" I retorted. "Your friend spiked my drink and I wasn't sticking around to find out what was going to happen next," I told her. Rachel then let slip a chilling line, "The spiked drinks weren't meant for you." That casual admission was all the confirmation I needed that she was involved. She quickly told me that she would stop by later to pick up her vehicle. Before she arrived, the memory of those 2 guys opening my door returned with jarring clarity. Had it been a hallucination or was it real? I went outside to check my car and there it was. The plastic casing of my driver's side door handle was completely missing. Whoever had been holding on to that handle when I sped away must have ripped it right off. The physical damage confirmed that the terror I felt wasn't a delusion. Someone had tried to get into my car while I was drugged, driving alone, and vulnerable. I was furious that Rachel had put me in such a predicament. I never spoke to her again. The moral of this terrifying story is simple, and it's the only reason I'm still here. Always trust your instincts. Your gut feelings are always right. Story 2, the late night gym. This happened when I was 24 years old. I was working a standard 9 to 5 office job and had recently joined a 24-hour gym about 10 minutes from my apartment in Austin, Texas. I'm not a morning person at all, so I preferred going late at night, usually around 10 or 11 p.m. when the place was basically empty. I liked the quiet. No crowds, no waiting for equipment, just me and maybe 2 or 3 other people spread out across the whole building. It was peaceful in a way that helped me decompress after work. The gym was in a shopping center that was completely dead after 9 p.m. All the other stores would close, the parking lot would empty out, and it would just be this massive, dark space with the gym glowing in the corner like the only sign of life. I'd been going there for maybe 3 months when I started noticing this guy. He was probably in his late 30s, average height, always wearing a gray hoodie and black gym shorts. I'd see him maybe once or twice a week, always there when I arrived and usually still there when I left. At first, I didn't think much of it. Plenty of people prefer late-night workouts. But then I started noticing a pattern. He never seemed to actually work out. He'd be on a treadmill but walking at like 2 miles per hour and staring at his phone. Or he'd sit on a bench press and just sit there. Not lifting. Not stretching. Just sitting. And whenever I'd move to a new area, from cardio to weights, from weights to stretching, he'd move shortly after. Not immediately. But within 5 minutes, he'd migrate to somewhere nearby. I told myself I was being paranoid. It was a small gym. There were only so many places to be. Maybe he was just doing a weird circuit or taking long rest breaks. But then one night I caught him staring. I was on the leg press machine and I glanced up at the mirror across from me. He was behind me, maybe 20 feet away, sitting on a bench. And he was just watching me. Not looking at his phone. Not pretending to do anything else. Just watching. When our eyes met in the mirror, he didn't look away. He held my gaze for a solid 3 seconds before slowly smiling and looking down at his phone. My stomach dropped. I finished my set, grabbed my water bottle, and went straight to the locker room. I sat on the bench in there for maybe 10 minutes trying to calm down and convince myself I was overreacting. When I came back out, he was gone. I felt relieved but also stupid for hiding in the locker room like a scared kid. I finished my workout quickly and left. The parking lot was almost completely dark except for a few lights scattered around the perimeter. My car was parked near the gym entrance, maybe 30 feet from the door. As I was unlocking my car, I saw movement in my peripheral vision. I looked up and saw the guy in the gray hoodie. He was standing near the edge of the parking lot, partially hidden by a dumpster enclosure, just standing there, facing my direction. I got in my car immediately, locked the doors, and started the engine. As I backed out, I glanced at the spot where he'd been standing. He was gone. I drove home faster than I should have, checking my rearview mirror the whole way. No one followed me. Or at least, I didn't think anyone did. The next week, I skipped the gym. I told myself I needed a rest week, but really, I was just scared to go back. When I finally did go back, I went earlier, around 8 p.m. instead of 11 p.m. The gym was more crowded. I felt safer. I didn't see the guy that night or the next few nights. I started to relax. Maybe he'd switch gyms. Maybe I'd imagined how creepy he was. Then about 2 weeks later, I went back to my late-night schedule. It was a Thursday. I got there around 10:30 p.m. The parking lot was empty except for 2 cars. Mine and one other. A dark blue sedan parked near the far corner. I went inside. The gym was empty. Completely empty. Just me and the bored-looking guy working the front desk. I did my usual routine. Treadmill, weights, stretching. About 40 minutes in, I was on the rowing machine when I saw someone walk in through the front entrance. Gray hoodie. Black gym shorts. My heart started pounding immediately. He didn't check in. He just walked past the front desk. The employee didn't even look up from his phone and headed straight into the gym. He went to a treadmill. The same treadmill he always used. The one with a direct line of sight to most of the gym. I tried to keep working out, but I couldn't focus. Every time I glanced up, he was looking in my direction. I decided to leave. I didn't care that I'd only been there 40 minutes. I grabbed my stuff and headed toward the exit. As I walked past him, he said, "Leaving already?" I didn't respond. I just kept walking. He called after me, "I've seen you here a lot. You're really dedicated." I pushed through the front door and walked quickly toward my car. Behind me, I heard the gym door open again. I didn't look back. I just speed walked to my car, fumbling with my keys. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped them. I got in, locked the doors, and started the engine. In my rearview mirror, I saw him, standing outside the gym entrance, watching my car. I backed out and drove toward the parking lot exit. As I passed him, he waved. I called the gym the next day and canceled my membership. I told them why, described the guy, and asked if they could do anything about it. The manager said they'd look into it, but that unless he'd actually done something threatening, they couldn't ban him from the gym. I asked about the night he followed me out of the gym. She said, "He's allowed to leave whenever he wants. That's not a violation." I never went back to that gym. I started working out at home. About a month later, I was at the grocery store. I was in the cereal aisle, trying to decide between two brands, when I felt someone standing close behind me. Too close. I turned around and there he was. Gray hoodie. Same guy. He smiled and said, "Oh wow, hey. I haven't seen you at the gym in a while." I didn't say anything. I just grabbed a random cereal box and walked away quickly. He called after me, "Do you live around here?" I abandoned my cart and left the store immediately. I never saw him again after that. But for months I was constantly looking over my shoulder, checking my rearview mirror, making sure no one was following me home from work or the store. The fear eventually faded, but I never forgot the feeling of being watched. Of knowing someone was paying attention to my routines, my schedule, my patterns. And I never forgot that smile. The way he looked at me like he knew something I didn't. Story 3, the night shift bartender. This happened when I was 23 years old. I was working as a bartender at a small dive bar a few blocks from my apartment in Chicago. By no means a fancy place, just a bunch of locals who would come and get their late night drinks or to watch whatever games were on. I started recognizing regulars pretty quickly. A lot of them older guys. After my shifts, I usually walked home because it was so close, and sometimes I'd have a couple shots with customers near closing time, so driving wasn't smart. The walk only took about 8 minutes and I had done it so many times that I never really felt scared before. There was one regular who always made me uncomfortable, though. His name was David. I knew this because of his credit card. He looked to be around his late 30s, maybe 40. He had thinning hair and always wore the same brown jacket no matter the weather. He never came in with friends. He would sit at the bar alone and try to talk to me the entire time, showing no interest in any of the sports games that would be on. He asked personal questions sometimes, and I always kept my answers short and tried to stay polite because that's part of the job. But I avoided encouraging him. One Friday night, he came in like usual around 10 o'clock. He nursed one beer for almost an hour and just watched me while I worked. Not like he was intensely staring at me the entire time, but I'd catch him shooting constant glances at me and he would look away when I'd notice. Almost every time I walked past, he tried to start a conversation. Near the end of his drink, he asked if I wanted to hang out sometime outside of work. I told him I wasn't interested and that I like to keep my work and personal life separate. His face changed right away. He forced a smile, threw some cash on the bar and said, "Yeah, whatever." Then he left without tipping, which he had never done before. I remember feeling relieved he was gone, but also a little uneasy about how fast his mood shifted. My shift ended at midnight. The other bartender came in to take over and I counted my tips, grabbed my jacket and headed out the front door. The street was quiet like it usually was that late. I had just turned onto the next block when I heard someone say my name. It made my stomach drop right away. I turned and saw David standing near a lamp post. I didn't even hear him walk up. He gave a small wave and started walking toward me. I stopped but kept some distance. He apologized for storming out earlier and said that he tends to just get nervous. I told him it was fine but that I really needed to get home. He nodded and said, "I just wanted to ask one more time if I could get your Instagram or Snapchat or something. I promise I won't bother you." I told him I don't use social media. He stared at me for a second, then smiled in a way that made me uncomfortable. He said, "That's weird because I've seen you on Instagram at the bar before." My heart started pounding because now he was directly confronting me with a lie. I had no idea how he knew that. I just said, "Please leave me alone." Because at this point he escalated things beyond comfort. He kept smiling and said, "Okay, have a good night." I turned and started walking again, trying to stay calm. After a few seconds I thought I heard footsteps behind me. At first I told myself I was being paranoid, but when I glanced back I saw him walking the same direction about half a block behind me. I sped up a little. He sped up too. I slowed down and he slowed down. It felt like a sick game, like he was some NPC in a video game program to match my speed. I kept walking toward my apartment building, hoping maybe he would turn off somewhere, but he didn't. When I reached my building, I crossed the street instead of going straight to the door. I stopped and turned around. He stopped too. He just stood there under a tree, mostly in shadow. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I could still somehow tell he was smiling a little. I yelled, "Why are you following me? I don't want to have to call out for help." He didn't answer. He just stood there stiffly. I blurted out, "My boyfriend lives with me. I'm going inside to get him right now." That was a lie. I lived alone. I turned and hurried to the front door of my building. I hurried and punched in the code for the building. The door buzzed and unlocked for a few seconds. Right as I pulled it open, I heard fast footsteps behind me. I looked back and saw David running toward the building. I ran inside and let the door slam shut behind me. I didn't wait to see if it latched fully. I just ran up the stairs to the 3rd floor. My apartment was at the end of the hall. I could hear the main door downstairs push open aggressively and then footsteps hitting the stairs hard and fast. He made it in. I fumbled with my keys at the door, almost dropping them. I could hear him getting closer, his shoes slamming against each step. I finally got the key in the lock and threw myself inside, slamming the door and locking it just as he reached the hallway. A second later, his whole body smashed into my door. The impact literally shook the whole door and wall. I screamed and backed away, grabbing my phone. He hit the door again, harder this time, like he was trying to break it down. Then I heard another door open in the hallway and a man's voice yell, "What the hell are you doing?" The banging stopped. There was silence for a second, then footsteps quickly moving away. I looked through the peephole and saw my neighbor, an older guy who lived across from me. He was standing in the hall looking confused and angry. David was already halfway down the stairs, not saying a word. My neighbor knocked gently and asked if I was okay. I opened the door a crack, shaking and crying. I told him everything while he stayed in the hallway with me. He said he had heard the banging and thought someone was trying to break in. I called the police and they came that night and took everything very seriously. I gave them David's name from his credit card at the bar, and the building owner pulled the camera footage that showed him running in after me. My boss gave them the bar footage too. The next day, an officer called me and told me they had identified him as David Hernandez and that detectives were sending the case to the prosecutor. It would be treated as stalking and unlawful entry because he chased me into the building and tried to force my apartment door open. Hearing those words made everything feel even more real, but also a slight bit reassuring. I went to the courthouse the next day and filed for a restraining order. I had to tell a judge everything that happened, and they looked at the police report and the security video. The judge approved a temporary restraining order right away, and police served him with it soon after. I was told the prosecutor was moving forward with charges related to him trying to break into my apartment. I still worked at the bar for a while after that, but I stopped walking home alone at night. Even with the court order and the charges, I felt scared every time I came back to my building. I would check over my shoulder the whole walk and rush inside as fast as I could. Nothing like that ever happened again, but I never forgot this incident. About 6 months later, I moved to a different neighborhood. I needed a fresh start, a place where I didn't have to relive that night every time I walked through my building's front door. I don't work as a bartender anymore either. I got an office job. Boring but safer. No more late nights. No more walking home in the dark. No more regulars who know my name. And I never go anywhere without pepper spray now. Never.